Richard Shaw, welcome and good to see you once again. So who is Chris Hipkins, this new PM across the ditch?
Well, Chris Hipkins is around about now the 41st Prime Minister of this country. But you know that, Joe. Chris Hipkins is a senior member of the Labor Party. He's been in the Parliament since 2008. He likes to be known as Chippy. He comes from the Lower Hutt, which is one of the. It's not quite the provinces, but it's a far-flung suburb of the capital city, Wellington. So he can present himself as not a country boy, but a sort of a bloke next door. But he's been Minister of Education. He's been the Leader of the House. He's been Minister for Public Services and State Services. So quite a young-looking man, former COVID response minister, but a really experienced member of the New Zealand Labor Party.
And much along the same lines as Jacinda Ardern in terms of policy?
I don't think so, no. I would say that Hipkins is probably a little more lowercase c conservative than Ardern might have been. I mean, he's been sending some of those rhetorical signals in the presses that he's been given since he took over as leader of the New Zealand Labor Party formally on Sunday. I think what we can probably expect from Hipkins is pulling back on some of the issues that the Ardern administration, certainly since 2020, had been running on, but which are perhaps a little too progressive or a little ahead of their times for a certain minority or sizable minority of the New Zealand voting public. So Hipkins will be a little more cautious and a little more conservative, maybe a little more focused. So he would probably be slightly to the right of Ardern, I would think, on that left-right spectrum.
And so give us some examples of policy areas where you think there might be a bit of a change before he hasn't got much time. It's only 10 months before the election, but where there might be a bit of a change to what we've seen.
I think there are probably two areas there. One is that I think we're looking at a walking back of the government's proposal to merge TVNZ and RNZ into a sort of a mega public broadcasting corporation, a la the BBC. I think that one has proved difficult politically. It's not a significant issue economically, but it's caused ructions and it's created headwinds, which Hipkins will probably want to put to one side. So that one may go. The other one is some of the positioning that the government has been making on co-governance issues. Australian, your viewers will know that we have something called the Treaty of Waitangi here, which is a significant component of our constitutional arrangements. Certainly since 2020, the Ardern administration's made a significant matter of the introduction of co-governance into the management of our water resources. Co-governance has been around for a very long time, including under former National Party governments, but it has become a bit of a lightning rod for disaffection with Labor in particular, the Prime Minister or the former Prime Minister. So it wouldn't surprise me if Hipkins tried to make politics just a little bit more boring by taking that one off the agenda as well.
What's he got to do to get Labor over the line later this year?
He's got to pull back a sort of 4 to 5% polling gap, which has been fairly solid now for the last 4 or 5 months between the centre left and the centre right voting blocs. It's not insurmountable if you took the 2020 election out of the equation, which was a really quite extraordinary election here, insofar as that was the first time since 1951 that any New Zealand government was formed on the basis of a majority of voter support rather than a sizable plurality. Then where Hipkins is and where Labor are is probably not what not unexpected for a government that's heading into the end of its second term. But in a sense, what Hipkins has to do is not be Ardern. The former Prime Minister has become a polarising figure. There are lots of reasons why. We might discuss some of those. But simply by not being Jacinda Ardern, by not being a woman Prime Minister, quite a lot of the attention that's been focused on the Prime Minister's position will drop away. Hipkins has made quite a big deal of his Upper Hutt heritage. He's made sure that he has been seen wearing caps and shades and talking about people next door. So he presents a different kind of figure. He's harder to get at than Ardern was. I think he doesn't have anything like her global star wattage. He will spend all of his time invested in domestic issues. So he needs to pull his people around him. He needs a policy reset of some sort. He needs to focus on 2 or 3 major issues. I think part of the conversation really is what this means for the leader of the major opposition party, the New Zealand National Party, Christopher Luxon. Luxon is not a natural campaigner. He's an experienced member of parliament. He's an even less experienced leader of his party. And this campaign is going to be a test for him. He now can no longer rely on an anti-Ardern position within the wider public. He needs to start showing his campaigning chops. The unofficial campaign has already begun. The National Party needs to start rolling out some constructive reasons for people to vote for them, rather than them simply not being the party for Jacinda Ardern.